Angus Bargh. I'm formerly the Chief Transport Planner with CCDU, so that was the Central City Development Unit in Sierra. If you have any questions, happy to take them at the end. And I said to David, more than happy to, if you want to be free and frank about anything, if you want to ask me about overseas trips and how much I spent on training, you're welcome to do that. Probably won't answer you honestly though, I'm not, I should say. Previous to my time at Sierra, I worked for SCIRT, the Infrastructure Rebuild Alliance, as their transport planning manager. So it's been an interesting couple of years, mainly revolving around some earthquake repairs and blueprints and things like that. I'm going to give a bit of a whistle-stop overview of the Central City Blueprint and an accessible city. I'm assuming that most people here will know about it. I'm taking that as a given. It's been running for a few years. I know that you've been to lots of events. But what I want to do is just drag up some things at the end. I wonder if someone could bless it, that gentleman. What I'm going to do is just, at the end, just talk through a couple of things that were my sort of key takeaways from the last couple of years of my experience. Not necessarily key findings or summaries, but things that well, let's get to them and we'll talk through when we get there. So, where did it all start? Sierra and the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act formed back in 2011, but the blueprint and the Inaccessible City Plan really had its genesis here. This was a Share an Idea campaign ran by City Council in 2011. 106,000 responses. People were invited to say, hey, what do you want your new city to be? How do you want it to be? Now this was important for two reasons in my opinion. Although Sierra gets a bad name for what we did and how much we didn't listen, so much of what we did in a transport sense was tied back to the Share an Idea campaign, what people said they wanted. So it was important for two reasons. One is because it gave people a voice. People could actually say, this is what we want the new city to be. And secondly, it gave us a mandate to go back and point back to this event and say, actually, we're delivering on this because we have done X. So when we take a parking space out and put a tree in instead, often we're going back to this, what people said they wanted here, which were these things. People said, and generally when we collate them, I think these were strong themes that were coming through the Share an Idea campaign. A green city, a vibrant city, accessible city. Interesting what people didn't say, the things that were left off this list. I don't read anywhere in there that people wanted 10 skyscraper parking buildings, or they wanted, I don't know, let's not go on. That could be distinctive, absolutely, you're absolutely right, that's right. Rail into the central city. Yeah. So, you remember that the Christchurch Central Recovery Plan, which was the blueprint that was released late 2012. The Accessible City document wasn't approved until October 2013. It was a good, what, 9 to 10 months later? And there's reasons for that, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But the important thing with these documents, and this is what we like coming back to as well, they wear a number of badges on the bottom. And this is really important because, to me, irrespective of what these documents have on the inside, the fact that these people genuinely did work together and they collaborated around that time, despite, again, what you read in the papers recently about lack of collaboration, especially with two names on there, this was generally a collaborative piece of work. So the blueprint plan, which was in the recovery plans, preceded the Inaccessible City chapter. That was the transport chapter. So what is this? Well, effectively, if I could summarise this in one quick sentence, the blueprint is nothing more, nothing less, effectively than 17 anchor projects and an aspiration to get 60,000 jobs and 20,000 residents back into the central city. That's it in a nutshell. And if we'd achieved nothing more than getting 60,000 jobs and 20,000 residents back in the central city, then on one level we would say the blueprint has been successful. And effectively, the 17 anchor projects arguably are only there to deliver the investment confidence and, if you like, that gravitas to pull those jobs and those people back to the central city. The question is whether we would draw it up differently if we went back again. I say we, obviously I wasn't involved in this and I'm no longer wearing the Sierra hat. I don't know whether we would or we wouldn't, but the aspiration to get 60,000 jobs and 20,000 residents, I think, would still remain. And this is what it looks like to transport planners. We like to graph things out. We understand these, we understand pictures. So effectively, this is a description of what happened to population. A number of you in the room will have seen this graph more times than we care to mention. This was pre-earthquake. This was jobs. Central city plummeted. We lost about 30,000 jobs from the central city, largely moved westward. That's why we got so much congestion around this end of town here in Wrexham. All the jobs came out here. And then we really realised the vision to get those jobs back into the central city, to recover where we were in terms of pre-earthquake levels by somewhere between, well, about 2021, between 2021 and 2025. The latest indications are that actually we're not going to be far behind that pace of recovery. And then we want to see that growth back out to 2041 up to above that 60,000 jobs mark. That creates an economic vibrancy and the concentration of people necessary to support a central city and keep it vibrant. But similarly, or by contrast, we wanted to see the residential population grow from what was about 6,000 or 7,000 people pre-earthquake up to about 20,000 people. That represents about 6% of residential population in the whole of Greater Christchurch, which urban planners tell us is about the sort of the critical mass, about that tipping point to get the 20-hour economy back into a central city. So it's really important from a planning perspective that we have a concentration of people in the central city that we didn't have pre-earthquake. So really understanding what this land use picture looks like then allows us to develop our transport picture. It's really a land use led plan and then transport comes behind. That's why there was a delay between the recovery plan and the transport chapter. Now, the question was, how do you fix a city for 60,000 employees, 20,000 residents, when it was already reaching capacity if you wanted to drive in pre-earthquake? The 48,000 jobs we had pre-earthquake, you were trying to drive in the city most times of the day, and it was actually, you were congestion. It was actually difficult to move around, big times becoming congested. Maybe not by Auckland standards, but certainly by people who used to complain that it only used to take me 12 minutes to drive to work 10 years ago, and now it's taking me 25. And really, there's nothing really special about the transport plan. It's simply about looking at the network and saying, okay, actually, how do we make the network that we've got work smarter? And really, we looked at the network and we said, you know, our mode share in favour of active transport, PT, was woeful. We've got, I can't remember what the share was, 65%, maybe 70% in favour of private vehicle transport in and out of the central city as defined by the 4 avenues. We'll compare that later to other cities in terms of PT mode share, and we'll see that we're actually woefully low. And it's not surprising given our density as a central city and our probably lack of good and efficient public transport. Shaun's going to talk about that later. But this was really our vision, that we've really got to increase the mode share by the modes. Now, if you've seen this presentation before, you'll know this by the back of your hand, so we'll move on. But the threefold increase in walking, cycling, and PT by 2041 compared to what we had pre-earthquake was our vision, it's our aspiration. And if we did that, we will be able to force 20,000 residents and 60,000 jobs back in the central city. If you don't do this, if you don't get this mode shift, then what does it mean? Well, it effectively means you're going to cap that aspiration to get employment back in the central city at some level. Arguably, you'll cap your residential population at some level. It's in the scale that you might have in a different country. But effectively, you're going to cap it at some point if you don't deliver an efficient transport. So for those of you who don't know, this is how we vision the transport network. Basically, it's just a mode user hierarchy, fairly straightforward. Different modes prioritised for different streets. It allows us to make a trade-off in terms of space. If you went to Tim's presentation last week, I think at the council on the public realm network plan, Streets and Spaces Design Guide it's now called, he will explain that typical Queensland to Queen's chain width of streets that we have is 20.1 metre width, isn't sufficient to deliver everything that everybody wants. If your wide footpath, your cycle lane, your parking lane, a traffic lane, and everything repeat on the other side, you just can't fit that into 20.1 metres. But if you've got a street that's clearly prioritised for, say, public transport and for vehicle access, then you can say, hey, this is an efficient line of movement, we can remove the parking. And because you've got this more user hierarchy, you can make those decisions on those trade-offs quite clearly. Whereas if you've got something that's prioritised for walking and cycling, then slowing the environment down and removing parking and greening the street by putting planting in becomes an easier sell or an easier decision to make, again, because you've identified up front that that isn't the street where parking is actively encouraged. The other thing that we wanted to do to underpin the plan was the introduction of New Zealand's largest slow-speed zone, which we did on the 9th of March earlier this year. Council did a great job of rolling that out, changed over on Friday night into a Saturday, and that supports a pedestrian-friendly city, which was one of the core concepts in the recovery plan. In the blueprint, they said we want to become a supremely friendly city for walking and cycling. The Inaccessible City chapter doesn't include the Avon River Precinct, that was separate, but again, if you look at the principles of that, it's all about creating this fantastic, outstanding public urban realm environment to basically give the priority back to pedestrians and cyclists. So therefore, slowing the vehicles down, reducing crosswalk distances for pedestrians by narrowing the streets in certain places, that's how we achieve this. Walking, again, this is our key walking network, our cycling network, and a number of facilities, different types of cycling facilities to deliver that. Happy to answer questions at the end about whether we've got this right, whether we could have done it better, or whether there's better uses of this with streets, and I'm sure we've made some poor decisions as well as some good decisions. Public transport, hopefully Shaun will touch on this more, but this was the public transport network that segued with the hubs and spokes models, which was introduced last year, with two key features: bus super stops outside the hospital on Manchester Street, and obviously the Bus Interchange, which we'll hear more about later. Okay, so just that's a sort of quick 10-minute summary of AAC. So let's go through, this is the warts and all part of the presentation. So what were our challenges? And we'll go through them individually. But before we do, let's talk about our successes. Well, first of all, we built stuff, which it's a success because I think Sierra had a bit of a poor name for actually getting stuff built. And AAC was never an anchor project, and therefore it never got heralded as an anchor project. It was finished. There was only the two completed anchor projects before the end of Sierra was Hagley Park, that was officially the cricket ground, so the cricket oval. And, yeah, not Hagley Park, and the Bus Interchange. And I think that was it. But by that time, we'd already completed, I think, 3 Inaccessible City projects. We'd funded the first 9. We got our business case, business case accepted at national level. So I mean, it was the project as a whole was actually doing very, very well. And we had to take those projects through consultation. And again, that collaborative working environment it was embedded and it continues. So there were good things, successes. Okay, let's look at our challenges. All right. So this is section 46 of the Sierra Act. Chief Executive, he can come and close your road outside your house if he wanted to. He had to let you know he was going to do it, but he could still close that road. There was another section there that said he could actually subdivide a piece of land and actually create a road out of it. So if he wanted to, he could take your backyard and he could subdivide it and he could call it a road. Actually, if you're on camera, ignore that for me, because I don't know if that's exactly true, but basically he had a lot of powers under the Act. Right? He could certainly stop a road. And if you want to stop a road under the LGA process, it's a minefield, very difficult process to do. So he had these sweeping acts, which he used, and we got certain roads closed. Gloucester Street is about to be gazetted to be closed, where the convention centre is, and that's gone through this process. But what he couldn't do, he couldn't change a parking space from a P60 to a P5 or to a P120. The Sierra Act didn't allow him to do that. And the corollary of that was any change we made to the road environment had to go through a full consultation process, open consultation process. Now, in my mind, retrospectively, I asked myself, was that a good thing? And I think it was, absolutely, because we took everything into consultation. The designs that we produced were a lot better as a result of asking people, do you like this, is this good? But the question is, did we have that mandate already as a result of this? Did people say, hey, we want a green city, and therefore we could have just done it? We didn't need to go back to them and consult on it. It's a difficult question, and it certainly slowed us down. And it was certainly a difficult process. And when you're in a post-disaster recovery environment, is consultation, which takes up a hell of a lot of time. I'm thinking about people involved, David's involved at the time, Tim Cheeseman's not here. It's, Les helps us along with some of it, I remember you in the room. It's extremely draining, and it's difficult. So I don't know the answer to that. I think there's some questions about whether we did full versus targeted. So I'll give you an example. Manchester Street, for example, was a full consultation process, full wide public meetings, the whole shebang got through council. Whereas South Framework was just neighbouring landowners. And to me, there's not good definitions about what consultation means under the LGA. And this is something where maybe as an industry we actually need to sort of allow some or provide some information at a local government level about how we can do things better. And the other thing to go hand in glove with that is actually, given the fact that we went into consultation, did we actually receive representative and informed submissions about things we were doing? We certainly got the voices that you would have expected and are necessary. So the big developers and your advocacy groups in terms of cycling and Walking and the Blind Foundation and your ECANS, so all those submitted. But we didn't necessarily get the same people as we got submitted here. They weren't interested. The language of consultation isn't accessible to the people who responded to this. Interesting in terms of the political interface. So Manchester Street, just give you this as an example. We're widening the corridor to 29 metres. The total cost of that scheme, I think, sits at somewhere around about $15 million. It's a full transformation of that street. It's going to look amazing when it's done. It'll be the interface between the civic core and the residential fringe of the East Road. With Margaret making playground at the top, hugely prioritised for bus passenger transport. We've got sidewalks and footpaths which are 6.5 metres wide, sort of average down there. 2 lines of trees on the east side, 1 line of tree on the west side. It's going to be transformational. These 2 slides was effectively what it boiled down to, getting the council to vote us across the line. That was it. That's what we had to dumb the whole scheme down to basically say this is what is happening. The green boxes are positives under the proposed scheme, and there was a counter scheme proposed, and the red boxes are negatives. We were saying the proposed scheme's good, and the other scheme isn't good. And you just wonder, you know, so all this effort goes into consultation, and effectively you've got however many it was, 13, 14 elected members, and this is what it comes down to. And you're thinking, my goodness, we could have presented this at the start of the whole process and saved ourselves a lot of hassle and a lot of money as well. If you have the answer, I'm keen to speak to you afterwards. But it's just funding. So, should AAC have been an anchor project? I've only got another 5 seconds, besides what to do in 5 minutes. So as I said, it was a success. We had the funding agreed, it was part of the cost share agreement. Well, if we had the phase 1 funding at 72 million, the full programme was about 240 million, part of a business case which has been accepted by NZTA's board. So the good thing that CIRA left, or the legacy that CIRA left with our partners, is that they actually have a business case now that they can run at. And that business case is hand in glove with other schemes at a city-wide level, such as the PT network, such as the major cycle routes, sort of the hierarchy that extends beyond the central city. So the good thing is, it's actually, for the first time, I think, in a long time, we actually have a business case which integrates at a number of levels across a number of organisations. So it's great. But we've only got funding for the first phase. That's 72 million. We'll see what happens through the cost year, but I'm 99% certain there's no more money coming out of national government for further phases. So everything's locally funded. So what happens if we don't get that money? So council have picked up the baton and they're funding St Asaph Street, Victoria Street, they're the next off the block in terms of consultation. Well, these things are to be agreed, which are an integral part. So the avenue optimisation. We've introduced a slow core of 30k, but as you know, if you drive through, and those from a traffic engineering background, we don't necessarily have the streetscape environment to support that, and that has to come. And we've got a lot more public realm enhancements needed to be done until we can say, hey, this is a supremely local city. So, watch your space. The council are committed to this. They've got a business case. NZTA are at the table. So it's looking well, but they've certainly got to protect further funding through the LTP. And we'll see what happens over the next couple of years as that goes forward. Okay, parking. I'm going to finish on parking. This is quite interesting. So, if you're a traffic engineer, or if you're interested in that, you'll know a lot about parking in Central City. There are 2 sides to this coin, or 2 very much diametrically opposed opinions. We don't have enough parking, and we need it because it's going to save our bacon, or we've got too much parking and we actually need to scupper what parking we do, because then that will get people on bikes and out walking. And both those opinions are actually over a fair degree of truth. This was a slide I presented, again, to the Regional Strategic Advisory Committee, just in terms of what happens if we oversupply and undersupply in each of these. And you can see there's merits and disadvantages to doing both. These are all things that have been told to us over various points of time, and we've said, well, actually, whether it's true. Number 1, there's plenty of parking. We can talk about that later. Number 2, but actually, the location and supply of it is changing rapidly in the central city, and that's a problem. Finding out where the parking is, that's number 3, is a problem. It's true. Large car parks close to retail precincts is desirable, and I would agree with that. Short stay parking close to where your retail is good, but let's not put it closer than where your PT should be. And arguably, in turn your camera off. This is where we've probably made a bit of a mistake getting too close with our big parking buildings. People say there's insufficient commuter parking. Well, that's not true. But many communities have got used to free parking, and they're currently having to walk further and further from their free park to their place of work, which they don't like, hence we're getting noise. And there is an oversupply of long-stay parking. If you tell anybody else who works in a major city that they can park within, what, 800 metres of where they work for free and park all day, they won't believe it. And that's what we've got advantage. Now, this is an interesting graph for those of you like me. Pictures, not like graphs, but pictures. So this was a piece of work that we had done for us by Jacobs. They went and looked at other cities. We asked them the question, how much parking should a central city have that's recovering? How we do it at the time? And they came back and they showed us this. What do we want to do? Okay, is ignore Christchurch 2041, or ignore Christchurch 2028, and ignore Canberra because they're strange in Canberra. Just concentrate on it. And if you do that, and you draw me, that's a pretty straight line in my book. Just a couple of points about this. Post-earthquake 2041, we could drop that because what that's saying is we've got no jobs, we've got heaps of parking, so it's going to be an outbreak. This one we could ignore because we're saying, actually, we based that on the parking that we had post-earthquake. So we closed all our car parks, we haven't rebuilt anything. So in that case, we've got an aspiration for lots of PT wheelchair, but we've actually got very, very little parking. In truth, when we do build it, we'll be back somewhere around about the middle of the line. Now what this graph is telling us is there's a strong relationship between the number of spaces, parking spaces you provide for your employees and the PT wheelchair. Now these other cities in blue, they've had 40 years to develop this picture. And you know, as things have been constrained, building another parking building, as congestion increases, more people move to PT. So it's been an organic relationship for 40 years. And we've almost got to force this relationship over the next 5 and decide actually where do we want to sit on this line. Now our aspiration for PT wheelchair sits at around about the 20%. So what this graph tells us is parking has a strong role to play in achieving that. What we do in response to that, I'm not too sure. What I will tell you though is that we had some architects over to the Performing Arts Precinct and we sat down in a 2-day workshop, and they said that there's a bit of a crisis in the UK, and I was going to bear this out through the parking news, which was a UK thing I used to read, no longer read it. And they said that there's actually this paradox in the UK where people built parking buildings in the 80s that now sit empty but are too expensive to demolish, and they're on prime land. And this building's there, it's £10 million to demolish it, and then it's another £20 million to put a building in. But the £10 million to demolish it is too much, so they sit empty. People play, you know, so they've got cheap parking and trying to drive people in on the third floor. So I think one of the solutions for Christchurch, and this is just my personal opinion, is that when we look at designing buildings, we have to design parking buildings that are repurposable in the future. So if you're going to put them in, extra eve heights, put the ducting in for repurposing it as an office building or something else. And that's what we have to look at, something that flips over in time. And that's what their advice and their partial advice were when we look at parking buildings. I think we've covered that in that previous slide, you know where we were going. I think it's been...
Let's get into it. These are the people that made it possible. I am going to be a little controversial tonight because I've got nothing to lose and say that not everybody on that list had the voice that they should have. There were a lot of voices though, and we did a lot of consultation, and I'll give CCD the credit there. We spoke to everybody, anybody and everybody. We listened to lots of people, and there was a lot of nodding, a lot of writing down, a lot of documentation. So it was great that we got there, and it was collaborative, I'll give them that. And the design team of architects, absolutely brilliant. I'm not on any commission, they're not paying me. Absolutely fantastic architects, and their track record and the work they've gone on to win is evident of that. Oricon as well, who I worked for at the time, epic. Everything I'm going to show you, I didn't do it. I was just the mouthpiece at the front and directing. I didn't do stuff. So we got Oricon's got some very talented people. There are a couple here today. I think they've been sent to make sure I don't bang Oricon. I wouldn't anyway. So $10. Geez, you've lowered your rate. So I love this graphic because when I'm asked what I do, or what I did rather before I retired, this kind of summed it up. And one of the aspirations I had going into the bus interchange was to help transform public transport's image. And the reason, Dave, that the public transport corridor is to the east and everybody's moved west is people who catch the bus don't have jobs generally. They're too busy on their way to a shopping mall to do some shoplifting. These are the attitudes we came up against. It's unbelievable, but it's out there. And dealing one-on-one with the public about public transport users is scary. It's borderline racism. It's appalling. One of the goals we had was to transform public transport, make it a cool place to be, almost not recognise it as a transport hub. And the one thing that you don't know that I'm going to tell you now is the Bus Interchange was the first project, proof of concept, about making a place. Because that place, to support the hubs and spokes model, could then be rolled onto Rickerton Ave. Have you been up there? It's fantastic. Is it a bus stop? What is it? What could it be? What could it evolve onto be? And so this whole concept about changing perceptions and changing mode shares and meeting targets is all there. You're probably wondering what this has got to do with the bus interchange. It's got everything to do with the bus interchange. You look at this image, watch her feet, watch it going up and down. Ask yourself which way is she spinning. Now look at the top left-hand corner. Now look at her feet. Has it changed for you? Has it changed rotation? Has anybody changed? Which way is? Put your right hand up if it's going clockwise. What's happened to you? Which way is it going? Anti-clockwise, right? Has it changed for anybody yet? Yeah. Keep looking. Yeah? Congratulations, you are officially using both sides of your brain. We, as traffic engineers, planners, architects, we're traditionally, architects are left-hand side, creative, visionary, use their hands a lot, wear a lot of black. Engineers are traditionally very boring. We talk about graphs, numbers, we've got a percentage, accuracy rate, blah, 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 blah. The two must marry to deliver a project, right? Where I'm coming from is you've got to use both sides of your brain to understand this presentation that's coming, right? Because the engineer in me says, this is about bus movements, people getting off buses, right? The right-hand side says this is a urban development impact footprint for CERA, the poster boy for anchor projects, the Kickstarter for the CBD, the one that says you have arrived in Christchurch if you came in on public transport. It says we care about public transport. We care about you, the customers. We're going to give you shops. We're going to give you information. We're going to give you a really cool thing that you can say, yeah, that's in Christchurch, that cool bus station. So we have to engage both sides of our brain. Why? Because, remember those boundaries CERA gave us? Oh, this isn't a bus stop. You'll hear the contractor say, it's a bloody expensive shed, the one that the bus is in, right? You've got to stop them there and say, and I've done this with Quinn Henderson, I've said, Quinn, no, this isn't a shed. This is an urban contribution. This is a civic statement with that, the Port Hills roof, because it's all about navigation. You look at that roof, it mimics the Port Hills. Why? Because when you come to Christchurch and somebody says, mate, which way to whatever, if you're a bit disorientated, what I do, and I think what you all do, is look around, there's the Port Hills, that's south, right, so you want to be up there and then up right? So that's how we navigate, via the hills. So this whole concept of navigation, about navigating the public transport system, fed the architectural, structural ideas. How cool is that? If you go in and look at the artwork that Otahu did, it's all stars in the glass, navigation by stars. The big compass at the entrance to the throne, navigation, it's all there. It's all interweaved, it's all been thought of, it's all been designed. Really good stuff, really proud to be part of that. So urban focus. It's got to be more than just a bus stop. It can't be a bus stop. It can't be where the kids hang out and eat chips and people get beaten up and drunks buy their cigarettes. You know, it can't be this perception. It's got to be cool. It's got to be civic. It's got to make a statement. It's got to be customer focused because we care about customers. Because if they don't have a good experience, they won't come back. And they'll tell their friends, oh, geez, don't go there. It's bloody awful. Don't use that. It's terrible. It's not safe. It's not safe. Don't go there. There's too many... No, forget that. Value focus. Sierra bought some land, massive piece of land, didn't need it all. We need a footprint that allows us to deliver a safe, efficient, viable transport system, but also allows us to build development around it that's symbiotic with it. Yeah? Another constraint. How much land can we make? How much more land can we make? Because you've got Seoul Square to the east of the site. How are we going to make this work? This connectivity, this thoroughfare. And that's how we got an inner street. Not many people know this, but in the bus interchange, that is a street. On your left there's those cubicles, and there's the cycle parking, and there's some shops, and then on your right there's a big glass barrier, and there's buses happening, and there's an arcade. That's what it's there for, that's what it is, it's a street. Oh, buses are going to use it as well. Whoops, going too quick. So, oh geez, I did go far. Whoa, right. So, all of these things contributed to the input to the design, to the solution we got to, and my goodness, we went through a number of iterations. It's a fantastic puzzle to have as an engineer, as a transport planner, as an urbanist. How are we going to make this cool public transport place work, but also keep it customer focused and make a civic statement and deliver the retail and have a through fare for people who aren't using the bus interchange, and it's going to be good for buses, and it's got to be safe, and it's got to be cheap, and it's got to be really low maintenance, and man, what a demanding client. But they got the best out of us. So lots and lots of inputs, lots of disciplines, and here's the constraints. Now we're going to come back to this at the end, but the public transport corridor system has obviously these pressure points. Colombo Street, where are we? Ooh. Yeah, Colombo Street, Churn, Colombo Asif, the Manchester Street area. This, unbelievably, in retrospect, became a real sticky point for us, this whole Lichfield Street and its repurposing and the land use decisions that were made in this area that compromised the public transport interchange site, but we'll come to that at the end. So all of this was framing the boundaries, and the designs we were pushed towards, they were done previously by experts, and they were all facilities for vehicles, which is great, because that's how transport engineers have designed bus stations for years, right? And our mantra was, they're facilities for vehicles, because they're easy for the buses, and it makes the buses fast and efficient and safe, right? And we said, we don't want to do that, because, I mean, I'm not a bus driver, although I pretend to be. You can later if I'm still here. What we want to do is to give a place for people. So the first design input that we made important in our multiple criteria assessment was, how much segregation is there going to be between people and buses? Do you want to get off a bus and like be walking around it and exhaust fumes and be looking out for other buses? No. What we wanted was an airport-style total segregation, total safety. And that's what we got. Fantastic. But my goodness, did we have to fight hard for that. It's not efficient. It's too much space taken up. It's not been done before. It's not the way we do things. How many times have you heard that? It's not the way we do things, Angus. We don't do it that way here in Christchurch. Yes, we do. I'm going to give you some insights into the design. I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if we ever do get tram or light rail or some sort of on-street mass movement system, and it runs up and down Colombo Street, and you heard it here first, the bus interchange is ready. It's been retrospectively designed. You look at where those doors are, here, here, and here. It's all Colombo Street facing, ready and waiting for light rail or rail. That's a win. And that is one of the things we should have done in the accessible city. Land-banked corridors, public transport corridors. It's what we should have banked. We haven't. What else have we done? I didn't know this until we did this project. Did you know that when Christchurch was founded, Lichfield Street was where all the bricks were made? All the brick traders were placed. And so brilliantly, architects, so they're not here, are they? I should give them a big up. They made this facade all brick to mimic the rest of the brick buildings along Lichfield Street with a big, huge nod to heritage to say, Lichfield Street, bricks, brick facade, completely different feel to the civic aspect of Colombo Street. We don't do that in Christchurch. We don't respect, oh no, actually we do respect heritage. Yeah, no, it's a bloody good idea. Bloody good idea. It'll never work though, because now we've got two completely different aspects to the building. Ah, don't worry about it. We'll link it, we'll make it all good. Hey, this is fantastic. This is great. Giving us a great civic representation. It's given us a huge throw on Colombo Street as a totem to the public to say this is where the public transport is. This huge symbolism of Port Hills. We've got this sort of functional brick lane, Lichfield Street thing going on. How are the buses going to get in? Ah, yeah. And they've got to get out again. Oh, yeah. And they've got to do it really quickly and safely. Oh, yeah. There's no way around this. We're going to have to get them reversing. Nah. Culturally, the bus drivers never reverse. They're told, it's drilled into them, never reverse the bus because it's unsafe. And you want to make every single bus driver who comes into the bus interchange reverse. Yeah. Okay. Can I remind you about the 4 values of Zero? You know, the value focus, the pedestrian customer focus, the civic focus. One of those is public transport. Now, has anybody actually gone to ask the bus drivers, what about reversing? Do you fancy it or what? Absolutely everybody. Nah, it's not going to work. Forget it. Look, it's got to work. Look, go with us. Trust me on this. What did we do? We designed the first design that said, and I'll take you through this very quickly, this is for people. It's accessible by the street. You're not interfering with buses or movements. We'll give you loads of egress and exits. We'll give you a little pedestrian crossing so you can go get to your big car park quicker. Crossing here, big bus cycle here. Look, this is all about pedestrians. It's all about getting quickly to the bays. It's all about navigation, legibility, ease of use. It's all going to be fantastic for the blind, and it is fantastic for the blind, by the way. And it's accessible and it's great. What about the buses? Well, the buses, they park in this red zone. And they manoeuvre and reverse in this zone. And little engineering detail will delineate this line with curb and channel, where all the water runs to. So we don't have to spend any money painting white lines for demarcation. We'll let the natural topography and the engineering dictate that. Gee, that's a good idea. Yes, it is. And the yellow is where the buses manoeuvre. Oh, that's a lot of space. Don't like it. What about this? You know, this isn't good. This isn't good. Buses going quickly around corners at speed with people on. Relax. I've got it all under control. I'm going to show you some stuff now about how we convinced everybody and took them on a journey. Because like a bus trip, it's a journey. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? What's it going to be like on the way? So we did some bus testing. No, not really. They did this in London, by the way, but it's a nice prompt to tell you that everything that was being done in the bus interchange facilitates double-decker buses. We could spend the next 3 hours talking about whether we'll ever need to double-decker buses, but if you ever do need to go to double-decker buses, then the bus station, the bus interchange will accommodate double-decker buses. So we went to the red bus site on corner of Fitz-Beeley, is it? Morehouse, sorry, thank you, the other one. And we built a 1-to-1 scale from our design, the first 4 bays as you came in from Tulme Street. Great day. David was there. Who else was there? Can't remember. Anyway, here it is in action. There's bays 1, 2, and 3, and 4. On the day, we took loads of measurements and videos and pictures, and then we built a very cool model. What is this model, you ask? This is the software that was used by Weta Workshops in the making of The Lord of the Rings. It's called, what's it called? Massive. And it's all about artificial intelligence, where items are given a brain, a set of rules, and off they go. Why am I talking about this? Because there is no software package in the earth that will micro-simulate buses reversing. It's unbelievable, isn't it? You can manually go and do it, but can you say, you are a bus, these are your properties, this is your turning, this is how quickly you go, blah, blah, blah. Can you get a model to do that? No. So we found a model that did it, and brilliantly, it allows you to model humans. So all of a sudden, the two key components of our bus interchange, the pedestrian customer side and the bus operation side, started to become modelable, is that a word? I'm looking at the other modelers in the room. We could model it. And so we used it because graphically it's easy to understand, but as you'll see from the next one, we used it in an operational sense. This is quicker, speed it up, because it's a bit boring. And we did the peak 15 minutes under 2021 loading to see how it would operate, because one of the biggest concerns was, how many platforms have we got? Have we got enough? Have we got in some capacity? Where are all the people going to go? Which exits are they going to go to? Have we got enough space in here for them to manoeuvre? So all these questions are coming at us. What's your patronage? What's your seating space? How many buses are coming in? What if 4 of them get queued up down here? And we're just getting bombarded with all these questions all the time. So we needed something to hide, not hide behind, something to, which is what modelers do.
Piece of paper, you're under 50%
look,
capacity.
The model says, John, the model says.
Piece of paper, 50% capacity.
Anyway, we'll come to that, John. And then we went further detail in the red bus, and we built up a bay, if you like, and we tested all the technology of the reversing cameras and which camera to look at here so that the bus driver could see what he's reversing into behind him, and the doors and how quickly people got in and off the bus, and could you get a bike in? That was extensively tested. You wouldn't believe the testing that I've been through. But all of this, and I forgot to say this earlier, this gave us the confidence to look David in the eye, John O'Hagan in the eye, and Jerry Brownlee in the eye. I never did that. It's too small. And say, you know what, Jerry, we've done everything we can to make sure that this works. We've modelled it, we've built replicas of it, we've listened to Shaun talk about it, you know. So we did everything we could possibly, and we were confident it would work, and it did. Here's the 4 wise men. And the small one, looking at this, and the reason I put this in was I just thought it was a really cool photograph. The point of that last slide was that while the concrete was being poured and the steel was being manufactured, the questions still kept coming. This isn't going to work. We've got a problem. Monday morning, every consultant in your room, put your hand up. Monday morning, key client on the phone. Bonjour. Good weekend? Why are you ringing me? We've got a problem. What's the problem? The unions. What about the unions? The unions not happy. Bus drivers are not happy about this. What do you mean? They're not happy. Why not? They said that they've not been trained properly. What do you mean they've not been trained properly? They don't reverse buses. You're asking them to reverse buses. What can you do? I know what I'll do. We'll take the existing transport models that we've built, and it'll take about 3 months and about 80 grand, and we'll build a virtual reality driving simulator. This is what I was going to tell the client. 3 months, 80 grand, 3 months. Hi, John. Right, I'm going to build a driving simulator. Awesome. You've got 5 days. It's going to cost 80 grand, John. I haven't got any money. So I went to Red Bus. I said, Red Bus, have I got a story for you? And he went, I haven't got any money. We're running out of people with money. Anyway, as it happens, Red Bus, Go Bus came to the party. Didn't charge them £8,000, charged them a cost, which I won't just divulge. Oricon employs a very smart young man in Perth, and because of the time zone difference, we set the morning up testing what he'd given us, and then we'd send the brief and the recommendations over, and then the next morning we'd have this incredible thing. It took him 4 days, unbelievable, from scratch, and I've got it on the laptop to show you. It's inexecutable. Basically, you throw the VR on, you're in the driver's seat, you change your views, you go in through Lichfield, you get told which bay to go to, you drive into the bay, accelerate, brake, you turn around, you open the doors, it's all there, it's brilliant. We put through, it took about 20 minutes a driver, and every single bus driver now, before they drive into the bus interchange, has to do this. They've set up a formal training. What a goal. It's huge, huge. And I think we got a picture of somebody, Warwick Isaacs, I think, maybe crashing the bus, I don't know. Anyway. So I actually got on the news with this, which was cool, and but the people behind it who really made this, they were a bit camera shy. Simon York was getting a nod for this. He didn't want to go on camera, where I'm quite shy and retiring. I said, I'll do it. So, all right, look, I'm going to wrap this up in 5 minutes because I now want to get to the juice. Take you back to what it is we do. And this is the problem. The problem is the future. I think we have missed a trick. I called Uber the other week to something. I'm not here to discuss Uber and the merits of it. It's just that attitudes are changing, society's changing, digital natives are coming in who no longer think that owning a car is cool. Rochelle and I from Oricon wants to start creating places where commerce is done, where retail is done, where people meet, where education happens, all of these cool things. Go back to Have Your Say. I was in council with John at the time when that was being analysed. 74% of respondents discussed transport, not purely as the main theme, but mentioned it. And there were a lot of people who mainly said transport issues. And what absolutely appalls me is, having been close to CCDU and the blueprint process, and Michelle was as well, transport and land use was acknowledged, and then transport was removed. This is insane. But I had nothing to do with it. I had no say. You didn't. You didn't. Everybody in this room had no say on this. If, Paul, we had to go back and do this again, I think I'd be pitchforking with the rest of the public on the street. And it'd be a cool rally chant, wouldn't it? What do we want? Land use and transport being covered together in the same study. When do we want it? Now! It's not a bit more, yeah, I need to work on that. Might run a competition. So, had we done the land use and transport together, we might have had a futurist come in and say, oh, whoa, 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 keep it real, keep it human scaled, keep an idea on what demands we need to meet today with car parks, temporary car parks, but don't go building 800 car parking spaces in the middle. Don't do that. In fact, get rid of them. Let the private market do it. And I agree, council did a great job there. I thought it was pretty shrewd. But how are we going to embrace some of these things? How are we going to, I mean, jet cars, I put that in as a bit of a laugh, but this absolutely fascinates me. And yes, I'm out of retirement tonight for you, but I'm sort of not retired because I'm studying this. In Finland now, and this is my vision, instead of your Metro card just being for buses, you pay a subscription, this is for those that don't know, you pay a subscription to whoever. And let's call it $200 a month, right? And what it says to you and me is, with this card, your profile's in there, and you go, you know what, tonight I need to be on Rickerton Road for a meeting. I need to be there at 5:30. Your app says where you are, and it gives you the options. Look, you can go pick up one of the free bikes, or you can get a bus, because there's loads of buses on Riccarton, or there's an Uber car over there. It gives you the travel options, right? Do you pay? No, because you've already subscribed. You're part of the wider system that moves people around, right? Very cool. Futuristic, never going to happen? Already happening. It's already happening in Finland, crazy Finns. They've just introduced cycles into the system last week. Brilliant concept, utilitarian. Everything moves the most efficient way, yeah? And when we remove dedicated parking lines, dedicated parking spaces, when we remove all that, then we give space back to people, back to streets. And instead of having streets where you get through as quickly as possible at high speed, you've now got sticky streets, where people are taking their time, interacting, spending, not having to rush through it because it's an unpleasant space, but wanting to spend space there. And that, I thought, was what people said in Have Your Say. Missed the trick, because Christchurch is the new post-earthquake city of the future, the small testing ground with 300,000 plus people in, could have been a really cool future mobility study. But all of this is gone, because we are hell-bent on getting back to where we were pre-earthquake. There's experts in the room that know more than me. How are we not having more car parking spaces back in the CBD than we are pre-earthquake? Is that right? There or thereabouts. Was it working before the earthquake? No. No, it wasn't. Missed a trick. So, let's go back to this network. I've done my bit. I've done the easy bit. I've looked at this space. I've looked at all of the different boundaries that CIRA and CCDU and ECAN and everybody else gave us. We proved the concept. We tested it. We modelled it. We cajoled everybody. We trained the drivers. We opened. It's working. It's an icon. Internationally, people hold this up as best practice. You have no idea how proud I am of this project.